My name is Dr. Brandy Lynch. I'm at University of Central Missouri, and I typically teach courses that are mostly juniors and seniors in our physical education, teacher education cohort. We decided to participate in the Health Moves Minds at the university level because of the amazing work that's going on in Missouri with Health Moves Minds under Christy Berry, Kyle Salvo, and some of the other people who have really been leading the way here. So Christy is one of our cooperating teachers. She's a UCM alum and was in my ear a bunch when this program started to say, hey, your kids would love this. I think it's a great opportunity. Last year, we set some things in place and got everything figured out to initiate this fundraiser, and we were quite successful with it. So as a leader, I really love the Health Moves Minds fundraiser because not only is it helping our students to incorporate SEL lessons and curriculum into their content area as they go out to teach and they practice teaching with their peers and teaching towards the affective domain, which is so important right now and something that we absolutely have space to teach towards in physical education, as standards 4 and 5 both address the affective domain. But I also love that it gives back to our program. So I've been at UCM for going on 7 years, and all the equipment in our equipment closet still says CMSU on it, which stands for Central Missouri State University. And we had a name change in 2007. So it's been a minute since we had any equipment updated in our closet. And so when we're thinking about what's the best thing for our buck, what's something that's going to give back to our program, our state organization, and our national organization, you can't beat Health Moves Minds. So the thing I like most for our future professionals about the Health Moves Minds fundraiser at the university level is that they get to experience running a fundraiser, seeing what it looks like from the participant perspective, and then us having conversations about what it looks like from the leader perspective. They're getting that experience so that when they go out into schools, not only could they help when they get into a practicum type of experience or student teaching, but they'll also be able to take this with them into their first teaching job. And so I know going out into schools a lot that there are so many districts out there that just don't have a lot of money for things, or they don't allocate a lot of money for things like physical education equipment. And so if my students can go out into job interviews and say, hey, listen, principal, this is how I'm going to fund my program, and here's how we're going to address mental health and social emotional learning within my classes. You don't have to worry about us. We're going to take care of this, and we're probably going to be able to give back to the school or some local charity. That's a pretty great sell. And so I love empowering my students with that knowledge, with that confidence, with the competence to initiate these types of fundraisers in ways that will be so beneficial for them, their schools, their districts, their students, and MoShape and Shape America. This past year, we did our Health Moves Minds fundraiser for about 3 to 4 weeks, and we did it in the month of February. So we were looking at Heart Month, and the kicker was that we were in a competition with the other university PEAT programs in Missouri. And so we were kind of having this competition. There was some smack talk going on back and forth. We wanted to come up with some bragging rights. The people at MoShape have been phenomenal about really building that up and making it a fun thing. So UCM fundraised the most last year. And at our convention this past November, we were gifted a spirit stick, but the stick was the guitar because the theme was Amplify Kindness. And so my teacher candidates walked around convention for 3 days, and they always had to be holding this guitar. And it was so fun to see them standing in line for food with the guitar, to see them going from session to session, to sitting in the keynotes, to even at the banquet, someone is holding that guitar. And so it really created this sense of camaraderie and this fun rivalry between the universities. And I think that we'll have even more engagement next year because we set quite the precedent, and we'll see if any of the other universities step up. So I wish that I had some groundbreaking, revolutionary strategy to offer you, but really we just created buy-in in our PE club. We shared it in our classes, And then we just really tried to make it out to be something that we were all a part of. Everyone signed up as a team. We came up with individual goals. And then the first kind of big push was just share it out on social media and share it with your family members. And so students were going into, I think we had spring break around that time. And the goal was like, hey, go share with your grandma, go share with your mom and dad, share with the people in your circle. And it was amazing to see how much fundraising we were able to do just by word of mouth and just by putting it on social media. So our UCM Phys Ed we're quite active on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, but to have that shared out on students' individual pages as well is, I think, what pushed us over the edge. My favorite part of this whole thing was seeing how many of our alumni, our former faculty members, other people who are affiliated with University of Central Missouri come together to donate for our fundraiser. So because we have such a broad network and we have alumni everywhere, I think that they helped support the cause for us. Our students were inspired by that. A lot of our students even donated their own money as part of like the kickoff for their individual goals. And I think when you put a little bit of skin in the game and you can show that you're dedicated to this too, helps other people feel like, okay, if you're actually contributing to something you say is important, I'm more apt to do that as well. So it was really neat to watch. We didn't really have any formal incentives. There was a lot of positive peer pressure, especially from our PE club officers at the beginning. But my students were very, very motivated because I told them that whatever funds we raised through this fundraiser, they would have 100% control over how we spent that money. And so through the 4 weeks of fundraising that we did, we raised over $2,000, which means our program got back over $1,000. And my students, before we even started, had this goal of getting a 9 square in the air set. Now, I would probably have chosen to do something a little bit different with that $1,000, knowing the things that probably could be replaced in our equipment closet, but I gave them all control, all autonomy. And so when it was said and done, they said, Dr. Lynch, go ahead and order that 9 square in the air set. We need it by next Saturday because we're having a PE club barbecue. And I said, okay, that sounds great. We have like $60 left over. What are we going to do with that? And they said, okay, we can order some volley lights as well. So they knew what they wanted to get, and giving them that motivation to say, it's up to you with how we spend it and what that looks like to benefit our program. It's not something we necessarily use in our classes, but it has really enhanced the engagement we've had in our PE club meetings. They always want to bust it out. And at this last MoShape convention, we actually brought down our own 9 square in the air set. So there was one set up in one area for the future professionals social. And then there was another set that was put up for just like the regular social. And so we had them going in a couple different areas. And my students were really proud that we were able to kind of contribute to the cause and bring something to convention to then share with not only just the future professionals, but also all of our members to enjoy at the social as well. So I'm looking forward to next year when we receive some more funds from our Health Moves Minds fundraiser to maybe replenish some of those other things in our equipment closet that can be used in our actual classes, because what we got back this time was 100% for the engagement of our PE club. We have offered it to the rec center to put up at their leisure, as long as they take care of it, right? Be nice to the equipment, because when you pay for it, it hits different that you want to take care of your stuff. And so my students are very proud of the fact that they were able to get this 9 square in the air set, and that it's not just for us. We've been able to share it out with some of the different events that have been going on campus. So the benefit is far reaching. And you'd think that with all of the practice they get, we would win the tournament at MoShape. And we haven't the last 2 years. So I've been really challenging them to step up their game, because we have it in our closet now. There's no reason, besides the fact we don't have anybody who's 6'8", like the guy who keeps winning it every year, to come around and win that tournament at the MoShape convention. I think that the benefits are far reaching because it's not just for us. And as we continue on with this fundraiser and we do this from year to year, and hopefully we continue to increase how many people we reach and the fundraising that we're able to do, some of that, the incentives and the fundraising funds that we get back can go to impact more people. So something that could be utilized within our university and beyond. I think that the sky is the limit, especially if my physical education club chooses to partner with a local charity, then there's no telling the exponential ripple effect that we'll have being able to put some stuff back in our equipment closet and then also give back to our community that our university is a part of. We have explored several of those activities, and I've encouraged my students to go to the Health Moves Minds sessions at MoShape. And for the students who go to Shape America, I encourage them to go to those sessions as well. We hosted a professional development event on our campus last spring, and we had 2 of the sessions really focused on Health Moves Minds. And so I think it's better when they can see it and they can do it in action. So we've explored some of that in our peer teachings, and I am looking forward to implementing this again in the spring and tying some of it into the course content that we're doing, and then really encouraging those students that I have in classes right now, once they get into practicum experiences, they'll have learned about it, they'll have gone through it, they've practiced it with their peers, and then they can take it out into schools. And so I think it's really important for them to see it, to engage with it. We do a lot in the affective domain. Every single one of our student teachers, every time they teach, has an affective learning objective that they're teaching towards. That sometimes it's the main focus, sometimes it's layered into whatever other content that they're working on. But we always try to teach towards all 3 learning domains. We know that that's what happens in physical education, and we have standards that tie back to it. So we should take credit for it. And what better way to do that than tie in some of these activities that go hand in hand with Health Moves Minds. So I think there's a lot of different ways that Health Moves Minds fundraiser impacts my students. Not only do they get the experience of setting up a fundraiser, going through the logistics, learning how to set up the page, and then how to market it, but then also how to articulate that so that they can go out into the community and try to get other people on board with what we're doing. Because the same way that we have to advocate for health and physical education, this is a way that we can advocate for health and wellness and continued support of our program. So I see this under the umbrella of advocacy that is so important to teach our students. It's part of the initial teacher standards, and we touch on these things a lot because you don't find a lot of information in a textbook that tells you how to advocate, how to defend, how to establish credibility for your program, especially if there are programs out there who haven't necessarily been doing it the most effective way. And so for you to step in and say, listen, what we're doing is important and it matters, and this fundraiser is a way to give back. We're tying in our social emotional learning. After COVID, you can't tell me that there's not a school district around that doesn't have this on the forefront of their minds on how to address the social emotional wellness of our students. And in some places, it's hard to tie that in a math lesson. They probably can do it, but it's a little bit more of a stretch. I don't know if it's standards based for a math teacher to tie in something into a lesson on the Pythagorean theorem about conflict resolution or self-regulation, even though they have students in groups that are a mess and can't work together. They don't necessarily have the space to address that, but that is our home base. That is what we do. So as we teach skills and as we teach values and dispositions, we can tie in some of these affective components. And so we've been doing this at University of Central Missouri all along. Now we have the resources and the lessons to back up what we're doing that ties in seamlessly with a fundraiser that not only benefits our program, but it benefits our state organization, which I highly encourage my students to become members of. I mean, one, because it's free, but also because it helps them develop as professionals. I can't tell you how many alumni I see at MoShape who are secondary, who are coaches, who have advocated for themselves to secure the funding to come back to Moshe because they know how much of a difference it makes to be around like-minded people and to be inspired and to learn what's going on in the profession and to just be re-energized and fill their cups. And so I feel like we're doing some good and we're helping out Moshe, we're supporting Shape America, and we're helping our students. And you can't, there's no other program out there that's going to touch on all of those things. So I love it because it supports what we already do. And it's not a tough sell. This feels like low-hanging fruit to me because it's something we've already been doing. And now it shows how much more our purposes and our values and what we stand for actually aligns with Shape America. And what better reason to get involved than to see all of the value for my students as they go ahead with future teachers and have their own classrooms and their own teaching space in the very near future. But also, I think that comes back on them as well. What teachers don't need some social emotional wellness strategies and tips? My 5-year-old breathes on her hand and she does butterfly hugs and she does all of these things that relate back to mindfulness. And some of those are from the lessons that we teach. And so it's good for little kids. It's good for college kids. It's good for adult kids, right? We all need to focus on that sometimes. So I think that there is a wealth of benefits across the board. And then some of the other teacher education programs on campus have started asking questions like, that's pretty interesting. We don't have anything like that in our content area. And I've had a lot of support from our dean in the College of Education to just share out and promote and showcase and highlight the great things that we're doing in our program. And Health Moves Minds Fundraiser is one of those things that our dean has been incredibly supportive of and has just shared a lot of positive things about, giving me space to talk about it in faculty meetings. And beyond our university, I think it's really gotten the ball rolling on some of the other PEAT programs in the state to say, well, how did y'all do it? What did that look like? Sometimes my students aren't engaged. And so, yes, it's a friendly competition, but man, we're all on the same team here. So if we can get together and say, this is what worked for my students, they might try those things too. And what works for them, maybe we're going to try to take and adopt and put into the strategies that we use. So teamwork makes the dream work. And I feel like we have an amazing team here that our students have been really positive about it. They have shared it with their family. They've shared it with their friends. They've shared it on their social media pages. And now they're really, really proud of the 9 square in the air set that they have. And they earn that themselves. So there's an extra special, just kind of like meaningfulness when it comes through the blood, sweat, and tears. Hopefully there was no blood in this, right? The sweat and tears that went into doing this fundraiser, because now they can see the fruits of it. And when we collaborate with a local charity, I'm excited to see how much more of just an impact that we'll make out in the community as well. If you haven't considered Health Moves Minds fundraiser at the university level, I would highly encourage you to check it out. I know sometimes it's a little scary to say, oh, we've never done that before. Fundraising could be a little sketch. I don't know what I'm doing, but first, there is phenomenal support staff. So Stephanie Jumps is one of the best of the best. Christy Berry is one of the best of the best. Kyle Salvo, Megan Baker, Casey Lovercamp, all of these people are there to help you. And so when I started this, I didn't even know how to get on the website. And Christy called me. She talked me through it every step of the way. She was checking in to make sure that we were good. And by the end of it, I felt like I did very little to kind of set this up. I gave them a picture and I made sure that our link worked. And then we just shared it out. And so I was given all of the resources and all of the support that I needed to be successful at the university level, because it looks a little bit different than if you're going to do it in K-12. And so this program is set up for a heat program. I would say that if you are looking to increase the equipment or the resources that you have for your program, sometimes it's a tough sell to get my chair to approve equipment because it's only for our program. Sometimes it's only a couple $100s and it doesn't go very far. Sometimes we're looking at other fundraisers. My students have done bake sales. They have done working concession stands at football games. There's so many other fundraisers that we've kind of dabbled with, and it's a lot of planning. It's a lot of personnel. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of investment. It's a lot of commitment from my students to work concession stands at football games. It paid great if we could get enough people there. But Health Moves Minds is something that we talked about in our classes. It was integrated into the content that we were already doing. I don't feel like I spent a lot of time in class that took away from other things that we were trying to do. We followed it up a bunch in PE club and explored some of those lessons. And then we just gave students the tools they needed to share out with their circles. And we know that students are so plugged in on social media that if we can get individual students to share out on their platforms, there is no telling the reach that we have. And so those are just like the little asks that we made. We didn't do anything wild to try to get this up and going. So to know that we raised over $2,000 in a matter of weeks by just sharing things on social media and then following it up with some of the content that we are already covering in our classes, it just gave us the resources to do it, was phenomenal. And we know that our students graduate from our programs and they have the knowledge, they have the skills, they have the attitudes, but when they get into that job interview, so does every other kid, right? So what's going to set them apart in that job interview for a principal? Well, one, if they're coming out of my program, you know you're getting the best. But they can follow it up with, because I know how to do fundraising, I know how I can give back and support our school, our program, our students, and the local community. And principal, you don't have to do a whole lot. Like, I can take care of this my first year out of the gate. If we can give our teacher candidates the knowledge and the program to take out into all the different schools that they're going to go work in as soon as they graduate from our programs, they're going to be so marketable, even more so than the fact that they're coming out of quality teacher education programs. I would say there's not a barrier to doing this, even if you only raised a little bit, and it's something that is going to impact your students beyond just how much money they get back. It gives them this sense of purpose that they are a part of something bigger than themselves. And we know that it's going to benefit our students. And it is the absolute best bang for your buck on anything out there. Unless you just want to say, hey, you want to cut me a check? Let's go. But if we're looking at actual fundraisers, you're not going to find a better one than Health Moves Minds.